This content is brought to you by Uphold, which makes crypto investing easy. I've been a user of Uphold since 2017. They're one of my go-to exchanges. You can buy, sell, and trade cryptocurrencies on Uphold. You can also trade precious metals and equities. They have 10 plus million users, 250 plus cryptocurrencies, and they're available in 150 countries. As with all exchanges, you can buy and sell on them, but I highly recommend you custody your own crypto. Not your keys, not your coins. If you'd like to learn more about Uphold, please visit the link in the description. Welcome back to the Thinking Crypto podcast, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. With me today is Reeve Collins, who is the co-founder of Tether and the co-founder of smartmedia technologies. Reeve, it's great to have you on.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me.
Reeve, let's start with your background before we talk about all things crypto. Where are you from and where'd you grow up?
Well, I grew up in a small town called Walla Walla, Washington. It's at the southeast corner of Washington State. Yeah, it was an interesting upbringing. We had a farm and really got to experience nature in all its finest, but also learned that I needed a little bit more than living in the middle of nowhere, even though it's a beautiful place.
Such an interesting name for a town.
Yeah.
Okay, so Reeve, how did I would love if you can tell us a bit about your professional background, because you're an entrepreneur, you're an investor. Obviously, you were part of big companies within crypto, Tether, and so forth. But how did you get into technology and wanting to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, a lot of it is timing. And I feel very fortunate where I graduated college in the very beginning of 1997, which is really the start of the internet. And I was fortunate enough to get a job at the first ever online advertising agency. So I graduated at the right time and got a job in the right sector and at the right company in that sector. It was the very first online advertising agency, and it went on to go public for $6.6 billion within the first 2 years. So I really was a front row seat to the rise of the internet. And myself and my friends, who are my friends and partners today, still that started back at that company, we helped create the ad-supported internet. So if you think about the business model of the internet, it is advertising, especially in the beginning. That's how these websites started making money, and not much has changed. So I've been involved in the forefront of technology really since the internet came online.
Wow. And now you're here in Web3. So you were participating in Web1. I don't know if you did much in Web2, if you can tell us a bit about that, but now you're, of course, maybe neck deep in Web3.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what was your first encounter with Bitcoin and what was your aha moment?
Yeah, well, being able to experience the rise of the internet and having that front row seat to seeing how it changed the world and how it really just exploded onto the scene in the late 90s. And then even witnessed the crash. Right when it crashed in 2000, I started another company, which was one of the first types of ad networks that was out there. And we created the pop-up ads, really made that a mainstream ad unit back in 2000. So I've been deep in the advertising technology world for many years. That had a handful of different companies in that space. And then in about 2013, I'd been friends with Brock Pierce for a very long time. And in 2013, we started talking and he introduced me to Bitcoin. He was just sharing that it's this great new type of technology, new type of currency, and I should get involved. And so that's when I started really taking a look at it. And then we had this concept, because when you think about Bitcoin, especially in 2013, it was still thinly traded. It wasn't really used very much. And it was really a new type of currency. And what people were focused on, it's this new type of currency backed by technology instead of backed by a fiscal policy, backed by a government. But what we realized was it was also, in addition to being a new type of currency, there was a new way to move that money through the blockchain globally, instantly, and free. Or almost free. Anyways, and that's where that aha moment came of, well, why don't we put the dollar on the blockchain? Why don't we format dollars, euros, yen, and allow them to move on a blockchain? No one was really all that interested at all for a very long time, because they didn't even want to move Bitcoin, let alone dollars, on a blockchain. However, we created the technology. We built the systems in order to do that. Now that technology is out of the box, you can tokenize almost anything instantly now. But back then, we were the first also to really build the type of technology to make it easy enough to tokenize objects. In that instance, we tokenize the dollar.
Yeah, I mean, Reeve, I don't think people realize what an incredible idea that was. The tokenization of the dollar and the blockchain. And to your point, look at where it is today. There's so many stable coins. The future is tokenization with tokenization of different securities, commodities, whatever it may be. I mean, it was truly an amazing idea that you guys created that. And to your point, nobody believed you or they weren't, bullish on it. But now it's like, wow, Tether is so massive and there's so many competitors now. Do you look back and say, man, this is one of the pillars of the crypto market that we created?
Absolutely. I'm very proud of that accomplishment, of that contribution to have had a material part in really the foundation of what is cryptocurrency today. Tether powers the blockchain. It is, I guess, the grease that allows that whole ecosystem to run. And in the beginning, we really had those lofty goals and high hopes for it, but still, it still has far exceeded our wildest imagination. So it's been incredible to see it grow.
Now, it was you, Brock Pierce. I met Brock at a crypto conference years ago. He's a character himself, but he's a great guy. And were there other people involved, or was it primarily you and Brock, working on the idea and building this out?
Yeah, and Craig Sellers. Craig Sellers is the CTO and really brought the technology to life.
So, Reeve, from the first time I got into the crypto market in 2016, it seems there's always been FUD that follows Tether. And now I don't know if that's short sellers who want to put out a narrative because they want price to go down. They use it as a tool. And to this day, you still have people, via crypto Twitter and certain narratives that are put out there. Why do you think there's this ongoing lingering FUD around Tether?
It's a great question. From a high level, you have to look at FUD in general. There's a percentage of people that just want to spread it no matter what. There's always the haters. Haters are just going to hate on whatever is the leading company in whatever industry. And since we're in the crypto space and really a lot of people live online and really interact online, there's so much chatter. I think it's even more intense in the crypto space. And then around Tether, due to the nature of what it does, which is now has billions and tens of billions of dollars in bank accounts around the world, it's the amount of regulatory scrutiny they're under and the amount of risk and just tension that they have within that company. They have to be as squeaky clean as possible, but also their best strategy, which they've been following for years, is to also be as quiet as possible. And I think that's what really has bothered a lot of people. They say, why aren't they more transparent? Why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? It's really easy to be that armchair quarterback, but when you're the person in the crosshairs, like the executives of Tether, and they're not only in the crosshairs of just the US, but probably of most governments around the world, yep. They don't want to say a peep more than they have to, just for liability purposes. Again, that's my perspective on it. And that's why I feel they're doing what they're doing, because everyone would like people to be more transparent, but I feel they're doing as good of a job as they can.
Yeah. And even recently, I think they've answered the call where people say, okay, show us more, and putting out proof of reserves and so forth, which is great. And, I know there's been a lot of different things that have been put out there, but they've been disproven over time. Are you still involved with Tether at all, or are you that's kind of behind you and you're doing other things now?
Yeah, I don't have any involvement in Tether, other than just a lot of admiration for where it's gone and a lot of pride for being one of the people that helped create it. Like really leading the charge back in the beginning, because taking that idea on when there was so much legal and regulatory uncertainty, which there still is today, but even back then it was even more. There was a massive amount of liability being the CEO of that company. But really just kind of understanding how to navigate that space and doing it successfully. It's been a great ride, that's for sure. And the other thing I want to say about people who judge everything that comes out from Tether so much, it doesn't it seems that it doesn't matter what level of proof of reserves they provide, people are always going to question it, and it's always not going to be enough. And that's what seems to have been the case so far. So they're never going to make everyone happy, but the reality of it is it's still the most used stablecoin in the world, and the volume speaks for itself.
For sure. It is the leading stablecoin in the entire crypto industry. Um, However, we have an interesting situation that we're in, and this is happening globally, and especially here in the United States. There's a call for regulations, not just for stablecoins, but the entire crypto market. What's a security, what's a commodity, and so forth. Stablecoins, however, seems to be a higher priority. Recently, there was an action taken against Paxos, which is a regulated entity, which was issuing BUSD, a stablecoin. What do you think is going to happen with stablecoin regulations, and what impact may that have on Tether?
There's a lot of reasons that stablecoin regulation is coming, because you've also heard a lot of talk about CBDCs, these central bank digital currencies. From a government's perspective, they make an amazing amount of sense. if the government could issue currency where they could perfectly track, where they could understand every single penny you spend and where it goes, and they could tax you before that money even goes to your wallet, it would be instantly taken out. Of course, that's a dream scenario for most governments, and that's why you're seeing China really push hard on it, and these other countries that have more control over their population and more controls in place push really hard on these, because it's a perfect solution for them. But from us as consumers, it obviously is like the biggest violation of privacy that we could ever ask for. And so it's a really delicate subject. The reason why there's so much regulation now in stablecoins, it's because if the government can't issue them themselves, and the US has done some experiments, and I do believe eventually they'll do some, they definitely won't have the level of control that these other countries will with their central bank currencies. However, they'll have a lot more control than they do today with dollars. But the reason why they're going to regulate these non-central bank digital currencies, such as Tether, et cetera, it's because they want to push more volume into the ones that they're going to utilize, or they want some of the benefits that they would get if they issued their own. They want these companies to provide that level of transparency from their customer base and from the usage of their tokens. And so that's one reason why stable coins are really being scrutinized for regulatory purposes right now.
Do you think there's going to be any type of caps on, let's say it's Tether or it's Circle USDC, that you can only issue X amount of stable coins and it can only be used in such and such avenues for payments or whatever? You think it's going to get to that level?
We just never know. All we can hope, and as an industry from the crypto side, there are a lot of people leaning in to work with regulators and hopefully help educate them so they can do the most effective job possible when regulation comes. However, it's such a difficult process, and a little bit of the benefit that we will experience is that it still will take a long time. Even with all this, all the push for regulation, it's still going to take a long time, which will allow the industry to mature a little bit more. And when those regulations come, hopefully they do add benefit to the end user.
It's something you mentioned earlier, and I think it's a great point. With the CBDCs coming, stablecoins are a competitor to CBDCs, and these governments, I'm sure, would like to get rid of stablecoins and say, okay, don't use that. Use our surveillance tool, so to speak. And I could see, they could potentially try to ban stablecoins. I don't know if that's going to happen, but these scenarios are certainly possible.
100%. You're exactly right. Like, the farther those CBDCs get along, the more regulations are going to come and potentially ban them in the future.
Now, we know the United States, they have the largest capital markets, and sometimes, the rest of the world does follow what the United States does. However, I'm just thinking from Tether, which is global and it's the largest stable coin out there. If they wanted to stop Tether, could they do that? Or it wouldn't be possible given how decentralized the things are now?
Look, it's a great question. It's similar to People always ask, well, can they shut down Bitcoin? The answer to that is, well, if they shut down the entire internet. Tether, can they shut it down? It would be very difficult because it operates globally in all these different countries. Is it impossible? No. If you get enough governments working together to really go after a specific company, yes, I'm sure there's some liability there. But here's the thing. Even if they shut Tether down, I don't believe it's going to, the end user isn't going to be hurt from that. The switching cost, it's so easy to move from Tether to USDC or to another stable coin or turn it back into Bitcoin. The governments are never just going to seize the money and collapse Tether and take everyone's cash. So as a consumer, you shouldn't have much risk, even if Tether, or concern about risk, even if Tether does get shut down.
Let's move and talk into a bit more of the crypto market and what's been happening. Last year was brutal for the crypto market. A lot of collapses, FTX, fraud, and so forth, Celsius. The biggest one being FTX, of course. What are your thoughts on that collapse? And it seems to have set us back a bit. We lost some credibility in DC. What are your thoughts on the entire situation?
Absolutely. There's not much to say other than it was just a punch in the stomach for the crypto industry. It really was. There was so much momentum, so much excitement, so much real enthusiasm, and this great bull market, and it all came tumbling down. Terra Luna, kind of started that, and that was a big blow. But then to have FTX, because we had this kind of figure that a lot of people in crypto, but more importantly, mainstream plus politicians were rallying behind in SBF. And he turned out to be a fraud. And it's just mind-blowing that it's just super unfortunate. I don't know what else to say. It has set the industry back. Now, flipping that lens and trying to look at what the positive is, okay, a lot of the froth now is gone from the industry. A lot of the speculation, the hype, and a lot of the fraud is gone because there's so much more scrutiny, and everyone is a lot more cautious, and there's a lot more attention paid to all the details that gets lost when there's this massive bull market and everyone's making money. FTX is the perfect example. You get a couple of signals from these very large VC firms giving them tens of millions of dollars, and then everyone just piles in with zero due diligence. And then it turns out that big VC firm, Sequoia, et cetera, those people that really put the money in there, doesn't appear they did much due diligence either.
Yeah, I think folks get blinded by the money, and then maybe it's a cult of personality with Sam Bankman-Fried, right? Oh, he's this tech startup guy, the Jane Street. Okay, you made some trades, arbitraging Bitcoin and so forth, but you got to do your due diligence. I'd love to get your thoughts on the regulatory issues we have in the United States with what's a security and what's a commodity. You have the Ripple lawsuit. You have Grayscale suing the SEC over a Bitcoin spot ETF. It's a mess, and there's a lot of enforcement actions. A lot of people are not happy with Chair Gensler and so forth. What are your thoughts? Do you see Ripple winning this lawsuit, and when we might get clarity on what's a security and what's not?
I certainly hope Ripple wins the lawsuit, but I don't think we're going to get clarity, never perfect clarity about what's a security and what's not. And at the end of the day, people just need to operate with their best intentions, and they need to operate above board, because we as executives and CEOs and leaders in the industry, we know what ethics are. We know how to run a business. We know how not to take advantage of people. We know what scams are. And if you run your business, even if there isn't regulatory guidance, but if you run it with a high level of ethics, you know at the end of the day, you're going to be okay. Because even if something you did is technically in a gray area or illegal, or they change the regulations and it's wrong, you will not get in trouble. And if you do get in trouble, it'll be so minimal. Because if you've run that business with integrity, and there's no way to prove you didn't do it with integrity, at the end of the day, you're not going to be the one that they're going to go after. They can only go after the people that are abusing the system, because that's all the resources they have. They can't tackle everybody in the industry. And so those people that are operating with integrity are going to be all right. Think back to Tether. This is why I felt comfortable running Tether in the beginning, when there was no regulatory clarity, and everyone was saying you're in such a gray area and this could be totally illegal what you're doing, but we just ran it in a manner that we knew we were never going to take advantage of anyone, and we were going to be as transparent as possible, and that's why it still exists today. And you ask about clarity around the security and utility tokens, or what's a commodity and not, and where these tokens are going to end up. We don't know, but I hope it doesn't slow down the innovation that's taking place in this space.
Yeah, for sure. And, the United States got it right with Web 1.0 and the internet. And I mean, that did amazing wonders. You were a part of it, of course, creating new industries, new jobs, and so forth. And now it seems like they're not getting it right, but maybe they will, but I don't know.
But there's a reason. The reason why is the internet was easy, especially back then. So go back to 95, 96, and they're like, oh, there's this new way to put information and move information really quickly. People are like, what do you mean? It's like, I can listen to the radio on my computer now? Like, that's literally, there's an interview of someone that asked Bill Gates that. He's like, no, it's more than that. And they didn't get it. And so therefore their government's like, who cares? You're moving information. Big deal. You can freely move it. Fast forward to the blockchain. The blockchain is the movement of money, the most coveted asset in the world, the most controlled and regulated asset in the world. The governments absolutely want to stop that. And therefore people are like, well, the internet exploded on the scene, and the blockchain and Bitcoin's taking a very long time. It's because there's tons and tons of hurdles with trust and security and the value of what's being moved. Whereas before, if you lost an email or someone hacked your email, who cares? Especially in the beginning, there wasn't much value there. So that's why this is taking much longer. And the governments are, it's going to take them a long time to figure it out.
As you were saying that, Reeve, I thought of, is this the biggest disruption in the history of the world? Because of, to your point, it's disrupting money. Transportation was disrupted, energy was disrupted, and data and internet and communication, but money, and to your point.
Not only that, this is the first time in human history that anyone other than kings and governments can create their own money. I've created 2 currencies, right? Lots of people create all these currencies. There's thousands and thousands of cryptocurrencies. That's money created by individuals. That was like every army in the world from the history of the start of armies, most of them were protecting that right to make sure people were using the commodities of that nation in a proper way. And now individuals can do it. So yes, it is a massive disruption and one of the biggest in history.
Reeve, you just mentioned you created 2 currencies. We know about Tether. What's the other one?
So BlockV was a company, and I did an ICO in 2017, and we created the first ever NFT platform.
Oh, wow.
This was before there was a term for NFTs. So first we invented the stablecoin and then the NFT. And the reason why I laid that claim is because there was an image posted to a blockchain in 2014 called Quantum. But in 2015, we started this company to create highly programmable tokens. And because after Tether and realizing how difficult the regulatory landscape was for financial products, the concept was, let's do collectibles. Let's do digital objects. Let's make physical goods real in the digital world. And therefore, we created a platform so we could make these highly programmable tokens, which was really the foundation of what NFTs are today. And that company has morphed into Smartmedia Technologies, SMT. So we did this ICO, and the other currency was called V. V powers that platform. It powers the protocol. And now there's companies built on top of BlockV, SMT being one of them. And now that company, the goal is to power Web3. It's an enterprise solution. It creates wallets, NFTs, metaverse environments for large global organizations. And all of those digital objects, you have to utilize our utility token V to create those. And now the end user doesn't know that. That's all done behind the scenes, but that's what powers the platform, is this token called V.
That's amazing, Reeve. I mean, stablecoins, NFTs, you were just kind of the spark behind all of those things. That's pretty amazing.
Well, I'm really hoping that now Web3 is where NFTs will really have their time to shine, because think about the explosion onto the scene in 2020, 2021 of NFTs. Like they came from nowhere, and everyone was so excited about all these images. We never envisioned that a JPEG was going to like be the spark of what launched NFTs. But what it really is gambling. Everyone wanted to buy and sell these images. They didn't care what it was. No one cared what the image was. They're just like, I might be able to buy it, and there's so much frenzy, I'll sell it more for later. And so that bubble burst because people realized there wasn't value in these NFTs. And a lot of people think NFTs are dead. But that's NFT 1.0 because that was speculation on a JPEG. That was just hype and excitement. The NFTs with utility, that's NFT 2.0, which is coming now. Because now people place value on these digital objects. They know what wallets are. So now brands are leaning in. And so that all brings us to Web3, because now the brands, you'll log into websites with your email address. You'll have a wallet that will be filled with objects that are paid for by the brand, therefore giving you, the consumer, a lot of value. I think that's step one into Web3 for a lot of people.
That's amazing. And I've been saying the same thing that you've been saying about NFTs version 1.0. A lot of speculation, a lot of hype. I don't care for the monkey JPEGs, but I do care for the NFTs that have utility, that unlock further experiences. They give me exclusive experiences, benefits and perks and whatever else it may be. And when they get applied to the real world, the music industry, the movie industry, and so forth, I think that's going to be pretty amazing.
Absolutely. And it's coming. It's coming really soon.
Reeve, I don't know if you can share this, but you've been the genesis of many great ideas as an entrepreneur and so forth. What are you currently paying attention to and looking at and thinking about for like the future?
Yeah, I'm about to launch a new venture in conjunction with smartmedia. So my real focus now is on smartmedia and really ensuring that it's synonymous with Web3, that smartmedia technology powers Web3, because we're going to be powering some of the largest brands in the world. And then we're going to roll out a consumer brand that's really exciting, that allows individuals to be really rewarded for all of their activity, because that's kind of the promise. Like, you can now get digital objects for doing all these different things. And so what I'm passionate about, since I have been at the forefront of digital advertising since the advent of online advertising, is evolving that. It hasn't evolved much in the last 25 years, but now we have an opportunity to cut out all of the middlemen. So here's the beauty of the blockchain, and the promise of the blockchain is to give more value to the consumers, more value to the end users. And the blockchain is supposed to remove the middlemen. It makes transactions more efficient. Advertising, if you think about it, is the most inefficient market there is. Last year, there was $570 billion, something like that, spent online globally in digital advertising. All of that money went to middlemen, all of it. It went to planning and buying and technology, the agencies and the creative people, and half of it went there. The other half went to the websites or the billboards or the magazines, right? It went to the publishers. Guess who got zero? The consumer got none of that money. All the brand wants to do is make the consumer happy, but instead he annoys them by putting ads everywhere. Web3, and with the power of SMT, will give the brands an ability to connect on a one-to-one level with the consumer. Now the brand will have the consumer will have a wallet. The brand will have permission to market in that wallet. So instead of sending that consumer an email, the brand will send them a digital object that has value. Because if they don't have to spend all that money on a billboard, and they can put $20 in the form of an experiential object, let's say it's a 3D sneaker, that if you send it to 5 friends and one guy purchases, yours turns into $50. Because that's all possible now through these digital objects. They're highly programmable. And so we'll be able to track every object, where it goes, and therefore the brands can put a significant amount of money in those objects. So to me, that's the reinvention of advertising. That's the evolution of advertising that allows the brands to give money directly to the consumer and skip all those middlemen.
So if I picturing this correctly, let's say Nike, to your point, they say, hey, download our Web3 wallet to get exclusive perks, benefits, and so forth. They release a new Air Jordan sneaker or whatever it is. they send me an NFT or I don't know, whatever it may be in that wallet. I can then be rewarded for sharing that and amplifying it. And if I buy it, maybe I get, I don't know, something from that as well.
Absolutely. Think back you're right. And the creativity of what that program looks like, it's up to Nike, because we have the technology to program those things to do whatever kind of incentive or application or tracking is needed to be done. When you think about back in the day when apps came out and there was a big ad, it used to say, well, there's an app for that, because you can program an app to do anything.
Yeah.
Think of NFTs as micro apps, as tokens that are programmable like an app that you own. Therefore, Nike can make that token that looks like a tennis shoe they can make it worth $50. They can say, if you do these 5 things, I'll put $50 of value in there. And that token then will be redeemable at a store, or now the $50 is in it. This is where it gets interesting. Now that that's worth $50, you can put it on a marketplace. You can sell it for something else.
Oh, wow.
The reason why that's so key is if you think about coupons and loyalty to date. In a lot of my talks, I talk about coupons and loyalty, and then afterwards people are like, coupons and loyalty are so lame. Why do you keep talking about that? I'm like, because that is from the past. Coupons and loyalty are kind of lame. Not that many people care that much. But in the future, the way they're going to evolve via Web3, they're going to be the most impactful and effective and the #1 channel that brands advertise to their consumers. Because it's not going to be coupons and loyalty. It's going to be called, basically, it's going to be rewarding them for behaviors. And you're going to reward your consumers for spreading your message and buying your product. But here's the beauty. Coupons and loyalty, if you got a coupon, there's no secondary market for it. If you have loyalty points, there's no secondary market. Yeah. But now you have this $50 tennis shoe, but you don't really want the tennis shoe. And in the past, then it would have been a waste. Your time and effort would have been wasted. Right. But now you can easily sell it for something else that you want. So now the brands will push as many of these objects out there to whatever avenue they can, into whatever wallet, because they know the person in that wallet, if they're not the target user, if they don't care about it, they will make sure it gets to someone who does care about it. That's why it's so important.
I love it. And what stage are you guys at with that and that product and service?
We're very far along. We're probably the largest in the space. We deal with the largest brands, the largest organizations, and we've done some massive campaigns. Next month, we're going to announce a partnership with some of the biggest companies in the world that are going to be utilizing our platform.
I got to have you back on, when that announcement comes along. I'm excited about, those things in the future and empowering the consumer and rewarding them as well. Kind of, like you said, flipping the model on its head a bit. And it's cutting out the middleman. I think that absolutely makes sense. And now it's verifiable, it's trackable. What's happening because of the blockchain. Let's talk about the metaverse, because it seems like we're in the Metaverse 1.0. Zuck is getting a lot of crap because his metaverse is not that great. But I believe as the technology, gets better and there's multiple iterations, we will be going into that consumer experience, maybe walking into a virtual Nike store and things like that. What are your thoughts on it?
It's an excellent question. I have a real opinion on it. Right now, everyone has these different visions of what a metaverse is. And you're right. I think Facebook has done a massive boon to the industry, but as well as a disservice. The boon they did to the industry was get everyone aware of it, and also put $10 billion into developing hardware, which is great. So now people will actually have some virtual reality headsets that might work, and they've really accelerated the pace of that. However, people now are expecting this Ready Player One world. And so then they go into Horizon Worlds, and they go into these first releases that Facebook or Meta has done, and they're very underwhelmed. And so that's done a bit of a disservice. But that doesn't matter, because that, to me, is absolutely not Metaverse 1.0. That's like Metaverse 3.0 when we're in this Ready Player One world. That's 5+ years out. The first experience that we're also pushing really hard at Smart Media for is for brands to just do a simple upgrade to their website. So you don't need to have this massive immersive mall and world, metaverse, all this stuff. But let's say that you're REI. Right now, if you want to go to REI, you go to the website or you go to any website. They have been two-dimensional since the advent of websites. They're not interactive and they're not three-dimensional, and you can't log in with other people. So if a website, REI, were to say, come inside, you allow someone to actually click into the metaverse section of the website. And let's say they only do it for mountain climbing gear. So you're a mountain climber, you go to REI and you click come inside, and you now have this immersive world. You get to walk around, and now the mountain climbing equipment is much more, it's merchandised in this 3D way, and you get it a lot more interactive. But not only that, you and your buddy can log into the website at once, shop, walk around together and discuss. Plus a salesperson can come in there and really explain all the technical gear. So now you can do all this in a much more engaging, personal manner online where you couldn't before. And not only that, then they can have a professional mountain climber come and say, hey, let me tell you about when I climbed Mount Everest. Click this button and you're in this like IMAX theater on your screen, and he takes you on this amazing climb, and now there's 50 other people that have showed up, and you all get to watch this video and have that guy talk about it. So that to me is the baby step. So when you say, oh, is the metaverse really going to happen? I believe every single website is going to have a section that's immersive. We don't have to call it a metaverse, but we can call it immersive. So this isn't virtual reality or augmented reality. This is simply, it turns your retail experience into something like a video game, right? We've been playing games online with our friends for 20 years, but you've never gone shopping online with your friends. That's really the switch. So it's not that big of a hurdle. So that's what I think is coming next.
Yeah, shopping and other experiences as well. That would be pretty cool. To your point, playing video games, but we haven't taken it to the next level, and those other experiences will be really cool. This is a tough question. Where do you see the crypto industry in 5 years?
Up. Easy answer. Look, what other answer is there? The crypto industry has always gone up, and I do think it will continue to go up. And when I say up, we're not talking about prices. And I get asked that question a lot as well. Where's Bitcoin going, this and that? It's not about the prices of these tokens. It's about the application of the technology. And the reason why crypto is going to become bigger, and blockchain technologies and metaverse technologies, but most importantly, NFTs. NFTs are going to be the foundation of our digital lives moving forward. They are the building blocks of what's going to take place in the future. Our lives are becoming more and more digital. Everything we're going to do is going to have a digital component. You're going to have a wallet. Therefore, your traditional wallet is going to be obsolete, and cash in your digital wallet, just the experience of the PayPals and Venmos where it's just cash, that's going to be such a small portion. That wallet is going to be filled with NFTs, filled from everywhere. And those NFTs are going to have value. That's why they're in there. And that's how you're going to be transacting with almost everything in the future. So where's the crypto space in 5 years? We're going to live in this world filled with digital objects. And that's why 5 years ago, I gave a speech called The Trillion Object Opportunity. Because that's what NFTs present. That's why we created the technology to build NFTs 7 years ago, because it was a trillion object opportunity. And we're just starting to realize that. And that's where it's going. People will start understanding the importance of these digital objects in their lives.
What are your thoughts on DeFi? We've talked a lot about 1.0s. I'm cautiously optimistic about DeFi because I do see the future where there's more decentralization, decentralized exchanges, and so forth. But 1.0 has a lot of exploits, a lot of vulnerabilities. I can't even keep up with all the hacks and things that have taken place. What are your thoughts on it?
That those hacks and exploits and vulnerabilities are going to be reduced, right? That's the start of any industry, especially when there's so much money to be made and so much money pouring into it. It's going to attract as many bad actors as possible. But we're going to get more sophisticated over time. But DeFi is this, it's an extraordinary application of the blockchain. It's a natural extension of what it is, which simply is more sophisticated products built on a blockchain. And what does that mean? It means we have an alternative than the traditional banking system to get those traditional financial products. And the reason why that's so important that you can do these types of financial products, the best example is a loan, a crypto-backed loan, is that anyone in the world with an internet connection now has access to that. So it's finally delivering on the promise that we used to speak about back in 2013, 14, 15, which is more inclusion. We used to talk about the underbanked and the unbanked people of this world, but really half of the world's population is underbanked. They do not have adequate access to stable financial services. DeFi can provide that for them. So once DeFi gets over this initial hurdle of all of the scams and I guess it's not as safe as it needs to be for the rest of the population to start accessing it, but that's coming very soon. Then they'll have access. They'll be able to participate in the global economy. So ideally, that will raise a lot of people's quality of living.
Yeah, and I'm excited for that future. It's just to your point, we got some ways to go to get past these hurdles, but I'm excited to your point. Like, you know, these technologies helping the unbanked and the underbanked. I think that's going to make things the future of the world economy and civilization much better.
Absolutely, and it'll make all transactions more efficient. And here's just one thing I want to share. I do a lot of news, a lot of press interviews and everything, and everyone wants to talk about the price that day or the latest fraud or scandal or something like that. Not many people will look farther out than 24 hours, let alone a few weeks. But this is an industry that takes a long time to evolve. The internet took 20 plus years before there was the interface moment, but like before there was a browser. So it just took 20 years for the technology just to move the information to actually mature. The blockchain's been around 10 years and we're not moving information, we're moving money. And so we're still waiting for the ease of the interface because we're still working on the plumbing. And the big difference between the internet and the blockchain is when the plumbing of the internet came out, no one made a penny. Therefore, nobody cared. It was a government and an educational platform technology that was used. But once a browser came out, the moment applications on top of that plumbing came out where people made money, then the internet exploded. With the blockchain, though, everyone made money with the plumbing. So the plumbing's super complicated, but everyone's focused on, well, I don't get it. It's complicated. Of course it's complicated. It's very sophisticated technology. The only reason you care is because people are making money, so you're trying to figure it out. So I bring that up because people are wondering why it's so different. It's like, well, people are making money, so they're trying to figure out something that's really complicated. However, this interface, the consumer moment, that's coming now. So it's taken us about 10 years to get here. But that's really another definition of Web3. It's really the consumer layer of the blockchain. So that's where we're at.
Final question before we hit the wrap-up questions. Bitcoin, has matured, grown, price increase, more adoption. El Salvador made it a legal tender. Bitcoin mining is booming in the United States. Do you see a future where more countries make Bitcoin a legal tender and possibly central banks holding it as digital gold as they do physical gold?
Absolutely. Yeah. And here's the beauty of that. The more that do it, the more valuable it becomes and the more stable it becomes and the more rock solid of an asset that it is. Therefore, those are good things. The greater adoption is better for the industry and for the ecosystem. So I absolutely do believe in it because it makes sense. The way where it's at today, it makes sense for them all. But when they all do it, it will make more sense because it'll become more stable.
Yeah, and I'm so fascinated by the fact of how China banned Bitcoin mining, and then the miners just went to the other parts of the world, and many to the United States. And despite you have the Elizabeth Warrens and the naysayers and the critics, right? The United States is leading in Bitcoin mining, as far as the pool data. And a lot of it's happening in Texas and different other states. It's pretty amazing how things have changed. over time?
That's a perfect analogy for regulation. So you asked earlier about regulation in the United States and how that's going to impact things. The entrepreneurs and the innovators are always going to navigate those regulatory landscape in whatever manner they can to reduce their risk and liability. China banned Bitcoin mining. Everyone left. It did not impact Bitcoin mining one iota. However, it impacted China and where the Bitcoin miners did their business. So no matter what regulations take place in the United States, the innovators will maneuver and navigate around them so they can still deliver the product. That's just the way it has always been.
For sure. All right, Reeve, I got some wrap-up questions for you. If you could create your own metaverse, what would the theme be? Where would Reeve escape to?
Well, what kind of virtual world would I look? Yeah. I'll tell. Ready Player One. I mean, it's a great movie, right? Let's create this world where everyone can build whatever they want and do whatever they want and live a very fulfilled lifestyle. Let's hope that the real world isn't like it is in Ready Player One, that our real world still thrives. But if you're going to create a virtual world, you might as well create one where people can really be their true selves, or just creating a wonderful experience for people that don't have that luxury in the real world.
And I got some rapid fire questions here for you. Favorite food?
Favorite pasta?
Favorite musician or band?
Well, I have to go back to AC/DC just because of high school days.
AC/DC is great. Favorite movie?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm going to skip that one. I have a great appreciation for a lot of films, and a lot of them give me a lot of satisfaction and joy emotionally, but I don't think I have a favorite.
Favorite book?
The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. I definitely recommend everyone reading it. It's only 100 pages. It's well worth your time spent.
I'll have to check that one out. And, when you're not doing anything in crypto Web3, what are you doing for fun as a hobby?
Kiteboarding, stand-up paddling, surfing. Yeah. Skiing, getting out there.
Nice. Reeve, pleasure chatting with you. I got to have you back on. It sounds like you're working on more cool things, but I appreciate you joining me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I appreciate the questions and I appreciate your time. Have a great day.